Mark Warburton joins us on the podcast today. What an absolute pleasure this is going to be. Harry Hennings is obviously alongside me once again. Harry, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, look, thank you, Jamie. Really looking forward to this one. Ever since you mentioned it, it's been, one of the ones I've been looking forward to the most. So I can't wait for this one. And thank you to Mark for joining us.
Well, of course, Mark, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Jamie. Pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. So, Mark, do you want to start us off then? We always start off on the podcast with the early days growing up. Now, I believe you played for Enfield Town back in your days, but that surely isn't where you were born into. Did you ever play grassroots football?
Yeah, I always played grassroots football. You do your normal stuff. You play for your school, you play for your district, you play for your county, etc. And you go on from there. And then you're at Tottenham as a schoolboy. And then, as I say, off to Leicester City as a young pro. So you sort of just go through the ranks, Jamie, and do what you have to do. I got about well documented now, but as I say, the way football works, the village of football, is that Jock Wallace was the manager at Leicester City. Now, jump forward 30 odd years, done manager of Rangers, and I've got Jock Wallace pictures everywhere. But I think it's fair to say that Jock was very much a tough, hard as nails Marine. The old school. I came out of playing school football, and this was like a complete and utter culture shock. So I've got to be honest, I love the sport deeply, but that really turned me off in terms of the way it was and how he trained. And I said to myself then, whatever happens, I'm never going to do that. And I've actually met his family, Jock's family. He's obviously passed, and I met his wife, lovely people. And I was never, ever anything personal, but I just made this fact that was not how I wanted to be involved with football.
Now, obviously, we've gathered that you were, predominantly a right back playing semi-football, but obviously we all start off in goal or up front or on the wing. So were you always a right back, or did you have, shifts elsewhere?
No, I was a centre midfielder, and then you get to a level where you realise there's some really talented boys, county level and above, there's some really talented boys. And so I was an athlete, I was a runner. So I had a choice really between the two. And I just ended up playing centre half, right back. And, I was one of those kids, I was very lucky. I could do sport. I could run, jump, basketball, cricket, tennis. I was just one of those very lucky kids. So I ended up playing centre half, then just gravitated towards right back. And Enfield was a good level. It was what is now the Conference League, and they were the best team. They won the trophy at Wembley, and it was a really good squad. I still speak to the manager, Eddie McCluskey. Years and years later, I still speak to Eddie and play golf, etc. So, that was a really enjoyable time, but it coincided with me going to the city, then going to Charlotte to play in the pro leagues over there in Charlotte, North Carolina, and work for the local bank that sponsored the team. So it was like a really nice turnaround. And then came back 2 years later, and I said by that stage the city career was taking a lot of my time.
To be a semi-pro footballer back in the day, was it the same sort of routine that they have now? So Enfield, for example, we've interviewed a few players from there, and the one that we interviewed was, well, it was a semi-pro environment that he was full-time in that environment. So for you, what were you doing part-time to make ends meet?
It was, that for me, I was on more money in football than I was in the bank. That's the truth of it. I started the bank on $3,250 a year. That's showing me age a bit, but then you played football, so it was like Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, or you had midweek games. But it was a big commitment, because then it wasn't regional. So you'd go and play Barrow, or you'd play, wherever you played, you were all over Altrincham and these type of places. Great grounds to go to, Weymouth and whatever else, but you were all over the place, literally. So Telford and these sort of places, there was none of the direct routes we have now, no trains, so you're on a coach for hours. So it was a big commitment, but the money was better there for me, and combined it worked out really well.
I've always thought that there's a big, sort of magical spark about non-league football and travelling miles to an away game and everything like that. Obviously, the Premier League's great, but obviously Brentford are there now. But growing up, Brentford have been through the leagues, haven't they? And it's those sort of experiences, like the match days where you'll go absolutely miles, like Carlisle, for example, or Hartlepool, like the really, really northern points. So imagine for you, it was just that sort of magical experience of going from south to north, north to south, etc.
Yeah, it was, but you're playing, it was a really good group of players. We had a number of England boys in the squad. We were, I think, recognised as the best team, far bigger than Barnet, at least at the time. And good crowds, good FA Cup runs. So it was good. I enjoyed it. But the city, I know it sounds stupid to say it, was really competitive. The dealing room was really feisty, really competitive. And it was like a dressing room, because, if you did well, you got rewarded. If you didn't, you lost your job. You did well, you got a big bonus, you got incentivised, teamwork, communication. And in hindsight, it was a perfect preparation for me at going to football and work at first team level environment.
Boreham Wood came up next, and I suppose that when you are at Enfield, you're in the middle of all these big clubs like your Tottenham, so like your Barnets, and I suppose even Boreham Wood is just down the road. So for you to go to Boreham Wood, was that the idea to really try and kick off your career, or was it a sense that you really just wanted to?
Boreham Wood was way smaller than Enfield, way smaller. You know, it was. I did my first ACL, and I came back from there and did it again 3 months later. Ruptured it again and everything with it. It was a really bad tackle and everything in the knee went, meniscus, the lot went. So I was, and of course I'm recovering and I'm working in the city, and the city was whatever people think about bankers and all this thing about bankers, bonuses and that. I don't care about politics, but I promise you, it was 5:45. I had to be in unlocking the telexes. It was 7:30 when you left. You got home at 9. And then the more you got into it, you're taking phone calls from New York and Tokyo, and they get their pound of flesh from you. So Boreham Wood for me was like, I knew the coach, Johnny Drabwell, really well. And Johnny, it was below my level at the time, but it worked out really well for me because I had so much work commitment. You know, it was just perfect. If I had to miss training, John still played me. So I enjoyed 18 months, 2 years at Boreham Wood. It was perfect, but it was really eroding because the city job was really taking off.
What were the facilities like then? So obviously compared Enfield to Boreham Wood, were they similar, or was it the sort of level that you'd expect? Enfield are a slightly bigger club, so they're going to have better facilities, or was it fairly even?
They were much bigger Enfield then. I mean, the Southby Road Stadium is gone now, you know, but at the bottom there of Southby Road, there was a, 8,000 seater stadium, and we had some really good crowds there. It was good football, and we won the conference and the trophy, as I say. So that was good. That was different. Going to Boreham Wood was different. It was much smaller, but as I say, in a very respectful way at the time, it suited me. It was perfect because I could, if I couldn't make Tuesday, I'd make sure I made one of them at least a week. And I kept myself fit. I'd go for runs or whatever I could, but I found myself sometimes, I'd be up at 4 o'clock going for a run, get back at like 5 o'clock, dive in the shower, get the 5:12 train or whatever it may be, or 5:30 train, be at work. So it was nuts. Yeah. It was nuts. But the fact was, it was good money and I was getting paid, and, you're young, you just don't care. I don't even think about it.
Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I loved it. But I've got to say, as I said earlier, people think the city is this staid pinstripe. It wasn't. It was our age. Well, if I was your age, it was 22 to 35, 40, and it was highly competitive. And then the more you got advanced, by the end, I'd give speeches and whatever else. And by the end, I mean, we had a desk, 10, 12 guys, probably turn over 25 billion a day. And they all go, 25 million. You go, no, 25 billion a day. Wow. You would turn over 2.5 billion in a day each. And it was just, and I don't realise how much pressure is on guys, literally yourselves, doing that type of thing, because you're dealing with the bank's money. So it was like every day was going to work. If you're competitive, it was great. I'm telling you, any decent footballer, I was good with numbers. I was lucky to be good with numbers. My mum was really smart with numbers, and I inherited that. But I loved it. I loved every minute of it, and the busier, the better. So it was great. I really enjoyed it.
After Boreham Wood, obviously, you spent a brief spell in Scotland for Stonyburn Juniors. Again, something I'm interested to know.
Juniors?
That's what it says here.
No, it's not me. I've no idea where that came from. That definitely wasn't me, Harry.
Oh, okay. Apologies for that.
That's all right, no problem. But no, I never ventured north of the border. Not then anyway.
Well, I do apologise for that. But am I right in saying that you moved to the US and played for obviously the local men's leagues, Charlotte and Chicago?
Yeah, I was in Charlotte in North Carolina. I was 22. Went over there 84, 86 and played for the local pro team, Charlotte Gold. And what they did it then, and even now, if you have a British accent, if you guys turn up there, they presume you know football, you coach. So I'd literally been there a week, and I was walking over just going for a run or something, and someone said, where are you from? I went, London. Do you coach? And I went, pardon? And I ended up coaching a girls team. Within a week, I've got 2 boys teams and a girls team. Then I'm doing the bank team. Then I'm being asked to go and do the high school team. I've got a full-time job, and I'm coaching 6 different teams. But it was because you're British. But I didn't realise at the time it was great for me. It was great because I was coaching and enjoying. Didn't realise about qualifications. Likewise, in '96, I moved there with my family. I was coaching. Different conditions. Charlotte's a lot warmer. Chicago was cold. Only 5 or 6 months of the year. But again, coaching. And then when I came back in 2000, my son had a good pro career, but at the time he was 8 and he was going to Arsenal, and then Watford asked him to go as well. And he went to Watford, and one of the guys, he said to me, "Oh, do you play football?" I said, "I used to, but normal guys chat." And they had no money, Watford. And he said, "Would you be interested in helping our academy? What level badge have you got?" I said, "What's a badge?" I didn't know what a badge was. I had no idea. Right? It sounds really ignorant, but I wouldn't know. So there was a coach called Ted Dale, brilliant, really good guy. He was Chelsea Academy director at the time, an FA coach. And he said some nice things about me and got me through level 1, level 2 quickly onto my B license. Did that quickly, and then he fast tracked me, and I found myself. I was senior trader at RBS, and I'm on an A license course with Ray Wilkins, Dean Saunders, Adrian Heath, Barry Horn, Clayton Blackmore, Chris Coleman, you name it. They're on the course. So all these guys I'm watching on TV at the weekend, I'm on a course for 2 weeks. But what was interesting, they were fascinated by the city. They were fascinated by the amounts of money and what was going through. So how can I put this? You sort of had a bit of leverage, because there's these big Ray Wilkins, world class, Man U, England, AC Milan. But we had dinner, and he was talking for hours, asking question after question about how the city works and what it does. And so you had a little bit of a talking point to go back. You weren't this geek over there who had nothing to do with their level of football. So that really helped. So now I've got my A license. My son's now, as I say, doing well at Watford, and they've asked me to go full time. And that was a big call. That was a big call. 97% pay cut to leave RBS to go to Watford Academy on 20 a year. But before, and when you don't know enough, I didn't know enough to go in there and do a good job. I can't stand just being average. So I spent a year going around Europe, Sporting Lisbon, Barca, Bayern, PSG, Ajax, Willem II, you name it, Liverpool, Frank McFarlane, great. Just going around learning. And it was the best year I ever spent in terms of learning, because I learned so much in that year. And then when I went to Watford, I was equipped, if that makes sense. I wasn't just some, arse going in there who didn't know what we were talking about. I actually had a decent bit of knowledge and got on well with A.D. Boothroyd, who was a manager. And A.D. quickly made me academy director. We set the first school up, at Harefield, and sort of like your reputation spreads from there. And then Matthew Benham came calling. Then Matthew came calling, phoned me at 1 a.m. in January 2011, I'm not sure what it was. And he'd just got rid of Andy Scott. You'd know all this detail. Just got rid of Andy Scott and said, "Will I come and coach the team to the end of the season?" So no one knew who I was. None of the fans knew who I was. So Nicky Forster, who was a player, was sort of like seen as the interim coach. Nicky had never coached before. So I did all the sessions, but it was literally 3 a.m. I'm on Google, or whatever the equivalent was at the time, trying to learn all the playing squad, trying to Leon Legg and Charlie McDonald and all these sort of, just trying to learn the Leggy and all these guys, Sam Saunders, Kevin O'Connor, you name it. I'm learning their names. And I loved it. I loved the coaching, but that was my introduction into men's first team. But, you go from
Sam Saunders was an unbelievable player, wasn't he?
Sam was great, good friend. I see Sam play a lot of golf with Sam, and I actually was looking to bring him over here, but he obviously is doing so well at Brentford, and he's obviously with the first team, so he's doing great, Sam. But huge respect for him as a person and a player and a coach.
Mark, I wanted to ask about the States. Now, Harry and I haven't ever been there, and I know you're there now. But when you first,
I have once.
Oh, have you? Oh, okay.
I was 2 years old, so I don't remember it very well at all.
Okay, so could you give us an insight as when you move to a big city in the States? How does the culture change? Because I've always wanted to try American food, and I'm presuming it's better than here.
It's not better; it's bigger.
Yeah.
It's bigger. Did you not? Everything you hear about portions, Jamie, is. We went to a restaurant, and our kids, and there was 3 of us, 3 English guys, and we ordered 2 calamaris and a Caesar salad to start.
Oh, Caesar salad.
Start. To say that 1 bowl of calamari would have been more than sufficient for 3 of us. This thing came up like this. I could have been here for a month of Sundays. And then the main course came up with steak the size of like Fred Flintstones. It was just ludicrous. But good food. But it's different. They're different. And a lot of good friends obviously here. But my old boss at the bank always said to me, they look like us, They speak like us. They are entirely different to us. And it's so true. And there's things that confuse the life out of me. So sarcasm is often wasted. So in the UK, sarcasm is massive, right? You use it in a nice way, good way. You play it with the players, cajoling and encouraging and whatever. Here, it's like, let me give you one example. This is one true example. Went to this restaurant and it's called the Capital Grill and the steak was magnificent, right? So I've literally nearly licked my plate. It was perfect. There's not a thing left on my plate. So the guy came up to take the plate away and he went, "All right, sir." And I went, "Don't ever serve me that filth again." Like, I said it because I've got a completely licked plate almost, right? So I'm talking away and we're having a laugh. 10 minutes later, the manager comes up to me and goes, "Did you wish to make a formal complaint?" I said, "What about?" He said, you described your food as filth. And I said, "No." I said, "I never left. There wasn't a drop on my plate. There was nothing on my plate." And I said, "No." But then you realise, they look at me like, what's he talking about? What's he talking about? And it's like, it's different. It's really different. How you think, how can I put it? Like with players, you try and understand what they're thinking. You may not understand why they're thinking it, but at least you understand what they're thinking. But here, I think someone's thinking something, and it's completely opposite. Completely opposite. So it can, and it's different. You know, if you go like New York, Chicago, the big cities, more like London. You go, you know, into certain, like Charlotte, for example, you can be in some different areas. I drove back from Tampa on Saturday for we had a men's friendly game, and I'm in an area. Wow, I could have been in the middle of anywhere. No, I didn't see a car for 15 miles. Like, I must have seen 50 churches, literally all these churches, shacks, like big American flags, and, you know, trespassers will be shot. And I'm like, where am I? But you come out half an hour and suddenly you're in the city again. It's just a really huge, huge place. So, yeah, obviously huge respect for it and lots of really good American friends, really good. But it's different.
So aside from the portion control and what we just mentioned there, what else what else took you a while to get used to from the switch from being in UK to the States? Anything else in particular?
Football sport is a big, big thing. So they're used to NFL, baseball, NBA, even ice hockey, like explosive 5, 10, 20 seconds. You think about NFL, right? And it's like smash, bang, 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 5 seconds, time out. And, you know, 4 15-minute periods, whatever it is, takes 5 hours or 4 hours. Baseball, they get up and they walk out. NBA, it's 30 seconds. Ice hockey, they're constantly changing, stopping. Here, so you go to a game, we could go to a game, the three of us, we could sit down at 10 to 3 for 3 o'clock kickoff. And at 10 past 3, 20 people go out and go, "Do you want a beer?" And you go, "The game just started." And I go, "But we just kicked off." And they go, "Yeah. Do you want a burger?" And you go, "No, the game just started." But literally, they're used to, like baseball, getting up, going and have a Coke, beer, hot dog, you name it. So I really miss the intensity of watching English football, British football, European football, because the crowd know when to cheer, the crowd know when to gasp, when, you know, the crowd momentum shifts. Here, it's different because they don't know. I went to an NFL game. The Jags played LA Chargers, but there was a big cheer, but I didn't know what they were cheering for. But and then I get to answer the question. But they'll see, how can I put it? Someone can hit a 50-yard diagonal crossfield ball, and a guy can bring it down on one touch, and you go, "Oh, what a great touch!" And there's nothing from the crowd. And then someone will do an overhead like bicycle kick that goes straight in a touch, and they all stand up and cheer because it looks good. And you go, they haven't got a clue about the game. They don't know the game. So it takes some time to get used to certain things for sure.
I spoke to an American coach literally about an hour ago, and he said to me that we all call it football out here. No one calls it soccer. It's only the headlines that tell you that. Firstly, is that true? And secondly, what's the American response like to our beautiful game?
They call it soccer, and I call it football. And it's like, when you say football, they look at you and you go, no, sorry, soccer, apologies. It's one of those. So no, whoever your guy said, that's wrong completely. What was the other question, Jamie?
What's the response like out there to football?
Obviously they've got the World Cup. They've got pockets, right? And it takes time. So the NWSL, so our women are top of the league. We just started this year. We've started from scratch, the top of the league. Ranked alongside in the Cambridge Super, the USL Super League is Div 1, the same as NWSL. NWSL is the same as a WSL in the UK, so the highest level of women's football. But it taken 5-7 years to get almost accepted, and it just takes time. It's not like it's not like the UK where you go and watch a team like Brentford have been around since 18 whatever, or Rangers 1880 or whatever it may be, and Notts County, and they haven't got the history of the sport. So they take to it, but you need more and more generations of dads played the game, sons played the game. You need that type of generational situation, because a lot of the dads, a lot of guys in the office here just know NFL. They haven't got a clue about the game, not a clue, as in nothing. They wouldn't know what a good pass is, or wouldn't know what a shot is, wouldn't know how long a game is. It's not their game. So you're just constantly fighting to educate all the time.
And do you find that differs between person to person, or do you think in a specific state, the one sport is just the one sport? Like, do you reckon, in Chicago and Florida, it'll be different, or it's the same throughout the whole of America?
It's different. It's like Chicago's renowned for producing goalkeepers, because it just does. It's like a thing there. North Carolina with UNC, big football, big American football, but big soccer history as well. So there's certain hot spots of football, for sure. Charlotte, Dean Smith, Charlotte's another hot spot. But again, they're also big on their American sports. So you're just trying to break into the market. At the moment, you've got NFL, NBA, and baseball. They're the three. If soccer can become 4 ahead of hockey, then that's inroads. Are they ever going to break? Is soccer ever going to break into that NBA, NFL, MLB? I'm not sure. Hope so. Of course I do, but I'm not sure.
On to the beloved Brentford now. So you obviously went there in 2011. And when do you remember your first experience of really stepping up in the world? Could you tell us about that?
Well, in terms of Brentford?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, let me tell you, the first time they had the training ground, Jersey Road, where they are now, is obviously revamped. But you know, Harry, the old training ground, we was a school, as a private girls' school they used to rent every year. And there was one little pavilion, and I walked in the first day, and there was a guy behind with a pot of beans, serving beans on toast to the first team players. I tell you not, he went outside. I caught him smoking outside, coming in, doing beans on toast, and it was like a scene out of the cafe on Coronation Street or something. And it was bizarre. And I went away on the first trip, and there's no names mentioned here, so I can be very safe. We played Walsall away and stayed at the Village Hotel in Walsall. Let me tell you, there's more salubrious places than Village Hotel on a Friday night in Walsall. So we stayed there, and I was announced on the Thursday, first session, taking the game with Nicky. And I remember this, and we had dinner, and it finished about 9:15. And I said, "Gents, I'll see you at breakfast in the morning. I've got in my room to just go through some bits and pieces with the team." And I caught one of them saying, "Yeah, see you shortly." I didn't hear any of it. And when I went down to breakfast, 3 of the staff were coming in from the night before. Right, so I'm in the Village Hotel having breakfast at 7:15, 7:30, and I watched 3 of the staff coming in from having been out all night. And it was normal for them to go apparently to a restaurant, have dinner, and then just go out. And that was my first thought. So my first meeting with Matthew was an interesting one. So Matthew, we need to change. And to be fair, Matthew's brilliant. As you know about Harry, huge respect for Matthew and what he's done. But yeah, we changed it really quickly. We got rid of staff quickly. We changed it. Brought Ozzy in as the academy, and people like Kevin O'Connor who stepped up, and these two. So we had to change it really quickly. And I think they were 18th in League One at the time. I think we finished that season, Harry, 10th, something like that.
I think 10th or 11th, yeah.
Yeah, which is in a nice position from being 18th and right about relegation. And then I really wanted the job. And Matthew called me and said, "I want to make you technical director in charge of everything." And I said, "I want the job." And he said, I'm going to get a guy called Uwe Rosler.
I remember him, yeah.
Uwe was obviously a famous player, really good player, centre forward, and East German international. And I was so pissed. I was fuming. But in hindsight, Matthew's wisdom, it was the best thing ever, because it allowed me to hire I mean, 6 of the staff, Harry, you would know. I mean, Bob Ateng's still there. You know,
He's
Chris
still, yeah.
Chris Hasden went to Spurs with Thomas, but was there all the time. Tom, he also went, but he hired him. Who else? Neil McAlaga, we hired. Neil Gregg left at the start of last season to go to Chelsea, but they were all there for 14 years. So I hired them in 2010-11, and they were there at 24, 25. So that was a really, Matthew let me hire the staff. He let me, we were the likes of Jake Bidwell and Adam Forshaw, James Tarkett, these type of people. Stuart Dallas cost $5,000 from North Ireland, so he allowed me to do that, and really set the culture. I had a really good upbringing in terms of working the biggest banks, and we set the culture in terms of standards and bonuses and everything else, and it worked out really well, really, really well.
Are those players that you just mentioned in Tarkowski, Forshaw, Dallas, they all went on to play for other clubs like Leeds, for example, with Dallas, Tarkowski.
All Premier League careers, yeah. I mean, if you think about
exactly.
We had David. If you go through the team, you had David Button, Moses Odebayo. Yeah. He was with it 10 or 12 million to Hull. Tarky, Harley Dean went to Birmingham for a couple. Jake Bidwell, we mentioned. Yeah. You had Alan Judge. He would have gone for 10 million to Newcastle. That horrible tackle at Ipswich. We had Andre Gray go for 7 mil. Hotter went for 10 mil. We had a really good squad. And there's others. Johnny Douglas was magnificent. Sam Saunders, Kevin O'Connor, all these guys contributed. But really, really strong. Yeah, really, really pleased with that squad getting promoted. And then, before then, obviously, Uwe went to Wigan. So at the time, Wigan were bigger than Brentford, and we were in League One. They'd missed out promotion, Brentford. And Matthew just said, I was literally going to an Arsenal game to do some commentary work. And I was ironing the shirt, and the phone goes Sunday morning, and Matthew goes, would you like to be manager? And I went, yes, I would. He went, great, let's speak on Monday. Oh, thank you. That was it. I said to my wife at the time, I said, I think I've just been made manager of Brentford. And that was the best day ever, because I loved every minute of it.
You mentioned there about changing the club culture and bringing in staff. How on earth does one man even bring in a staff to a football club? Is it LinkedIn? It wouldn't have been LinkedIn back in the day, but what tools did you use to be able to hire staff?
I knew Bob Ateng from Watford. I knew he'd been at Chelsea before, but Bob Ateng was excellent. I knew Bob; he was first class, and he's still there now as a kit man. So that tells you how good he is. Top character as well. Neil Gregg worked for me in the academy at Watford, so I knew his work ethic. I knew his protocols. The good medical people are slightly OCD because they're so meticulous in what they do. Neil was perfect. Neil McAlaga, I knew from the first team at Watford as well. So I basically went and got some people that I knew and could trust. Ozzy in the academy. I'd worked with Ozzy before, came out of Tottenham, and I knew Ozzy. So I just went and got people that I knew I could trust. I knew I could delegate work to. But I knew they wanted responsibility, but they didn't mind being accountable. There's no point wanting responsibility, but they're not taking accountability. And all of those guys that I mentioned, I knew they would. And then I got to know people like Kevin O'Connor, who Harry will tell you was coming towards the end of his playing career. His legs weren't at the level of the boys were coming in, but he was always going to be involved with the first team. Then people like Davy Weir. Davy, I was up at Liverpool. We did a tournament with Matthew called the Next Gen Series. We had the biggest clubs in Europe in this tournament, and Barcelona, Dortmund, PSG, Ajax, Liverpool, City, Chelsea, Anderlecht, you name it. We had these in this tournament, all funded by Matthew. And I met Davy Weir with Frank McParland. Frank was academy director at Liverpool, and I remember obviously huge respect for Frank, but obviously I really enjoyed Davy Weir, and I phoned him on the Saturday. He came down on the Monday and started on the Tuesday as my assistant. So I also had what was my Achilles heel? You got to ask yourself, what is your Achilles heel? Where are you weak? And I always thought, I've never had a playing career of these boys. I've never played at the level they've played at. So you can always be hit with, well, you've never played it. So how do I get, what was my answer to that? And get someone like Davy Weir, who's played at the highest level, great character, great respect. That worked out really well for me.
Now, obviously, you mentioned earlier that before you took over, as obviously all the roles you had at Brentford FC before the manager as well, people, there were a few eyebrows as to who you were, as you mentioned before, and obviously those managers have that scrutiny. But do you ever remember there being any active, thoughts by fans of who is Mark Warburton?
No, you got one or two sarcastic comments on the first game. there's one or two like who are you type comments coming out, which is football banter. That's fine, but the best thing, Harry, is to go and win games of football. That's the best thing. That's the best thing you can do. And the beauty of having worked with the players before, but more importantly, having been so heavily involved in signing them, they knew me. You know, I'd sold Brentford to them and tried to get them and secured them, and so to having worked with them before, I had that relationship with them, and you know, I know. Go back to Jock Wallace. I knew about training at football. You want to enjoy what you do. You're learning, right? You're working, but you want to enjoy what you do. If you enjoy your work, you do so much better. So I wanted to always put a lot of work into every session to make sure the players really maximise what I wanted, and David, I wanted out of it, but also make sure they enjoyed it. So that worked really, really well for me to have that sort of involvement the whole time. So when it came to the first game, well, you know yourself, we had a really, was it 19 unbeaten or something?
Well, yeah.
I think it was,
19 games unbeaten, which, touch wood, I was very lucky to get that sort of start.
And to build an atmosphere, I mean, it's very easy when you are winning games. Did you expect it to be so easy, as some might call it?
No, I just think, how can I put it? It sounds a bit corny. Please don't take this the wrong way, but I'm a bit like one of them. I wasn't like a big superstar football player who was taking the job, and I was just a guy who'd been working the bank and played a bit, not confident football, and suddenly you find yourself changing your career and managing, and you go, how did that work? I mean, to be honest, I worked my socks off. I worked really, really hard to get my licenses and ridiculous hours in the academy at 90-hour weeks always minimum. But so I'd earned it, but I just felt they could. I wasn't this big arse of a guy coming down in front of them, because Brentford fans are, from my run, they're just really honest working people. That's the Brentford fan base. It may have changed now, Harry, but the fan base, I wouldn't say it has. Just honest people, and they just want to see you. If you give 100% for them, then they would respect it. That's why Kevin O'Connor is so well liked, because he'll tell you there were games. Kevin wasn't the most gifted technical player. Kevin would have bad days, as we all do, and good days, but he always gave 100%. And I always felt that if you gave 100% to Brentford fans, and they saw you and what you're doing, they could see that they wanted to. I'm thinking they've got to enjoy watching their team play. We were front foot, we were aggressive, we didn't fear anyone, always respected everyone. We would spend 90% on us and 10% on the opposition, and we would just go out to really just move the ball with pace and purpose, and all week was on that. And I think the fans took to it, Jamie. So to answer your question, it was great. I love it. And they were a great crowd. They were always good to me and to Davey and guys. And I think enormous respect, and always will have enormous respect for the Brentford crowd.
Now, I'm sure you remember Tony Craig.
Of course.
Yeah,
Millwall.
Yeah, exactly. So Brentford Walsall, August 2013. I was actually mascot, and I remember walking out with Tony Craig at Griffin Park, and it was, I think I must have been about 4 or 5 at the time, but it was a surreal feeling walking out to Griffin Park, seeing the crowd. Do you know what? Am I right in saying we won that game 1-0? If you remember,
I can't honestly remember that one, but I mean, I signed Tony. Here's a prime example. And he played his first game, and I won't use the exact language that he used, but he was a Millwall boy, so you can imagine. And he went, "I've never touched that ball so much in my life." But he didn't. And then when you have a cup of tea with him, he'd been asked at Millwall to head it and kick it and hit the channel. But Tony Craig was a really good footballer. When you had him alongside the likes of Harley Dean and James Tarkowski, he could play left foot. He could really play. And he was a good footballer, Tony. And I saw him at the airport last year, Harry, and he's just finished playing, doing his coaching badges now. But he was a typical player that I'm saying Brentford you can get, and they can play. They can play. They're not these just kick it centre halves. He could probably play football, Tony. So that's where the recruitment is so important. The right people, 100%, good characters, but they've got the quality as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
As you've both just mentioned there, you've dealt with some phenomenal players. You've bought some, you've sold some. How does that actually come about? Can we speak about buying a player? Let's say you like someone who plays out in Europe, in Spain or Germany. You like them. How on earth do you go ahead and get them into your club?
you go through you find out, obviously, Matthew's the expert, outstanding. Matthew, in terms of the knowledge, it's his business and the database that they have and the algorithms they use to break down the players. So you'd end up, say, for example, you're looking at various positions and you might have 10, 12 candidates and you dissect it, break it down to the point you might have, say you have 3 or 4 players. And then all your focus goes on watching those 3 or 4 players. And then if you identify them, what's their contract situation? So Jota, for example, playing in Malaga, what was his situation? It was going to cost €1 million to get him in. We knew what his wage demands were. They were okay. That fell within the parameters. Who's his agent? You speak to his agent. What's the likelihood? What's he looking for? Is he contract up? Is he signing a new one? Is there a fee? All this type of thing. So you find out what the cost will be. Does it fall within your budget? Where does he fit in the team? What's his longevity? How old is he? What's the sell-on potential? Which for Jota he was young, so it's perfect. He did really well, as Harry will tell you. Then when he goes to Villa, I think it was after that.
And then QPR eventually, wasn't it?
Yeah,
no, Birmingham. Sorry, I think Birmingham.
Birmingham after that, yeah. And I think he's now got he's a billionaire now. Some business has kicked off that's doing really well. But you answer your question, Jamie. You just got to identify who's available. Do they fit your player profiles? What you're looking for? What they bring to the team? What the technical, tactical, physical, psychological profiles you're looking for that particular position. And once you've narrowed it down, you just do your homework from there. And that's where the agents come in. And some agents are sensible. You've lost players who really wanted to come, but their agents talk them out or price them out of it, which is ludicrous. But that happens in football all the time.
Now, obviously, unfortunately, all managers do seem to come to an end at their clubs. Now, obviously, you did leave Brentford eventually, but I have to say you left a very, very well-respected and almost a hero after leading us to our best finish in 80 years. So from my family to yours, you were deemed an absolute hero in our family, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
No worries. But what was the conversation like, unfortunately, when the time at Brentford came to an end?
It was, if you remember, we were favourites for relegation when we got promoted.
Yeah.
So we got promoted with Wolves and we had the 3rd smallest budget or something. So we had a group of players and we added some good names, some good quality to it. And the squad was like Pritchard coming in from Tottenham, for example. Pritchard was perfect. He played 44 out of 46 games that season. So we recruited well and we just said, like, everyone thinks we're underdogs. Let's give it a go. And we gave it a proper go, as you know. And by the time we got to Christmas, it was Bournemouth top, we were second. And it was too late. The other teams, it was too late for them to go to Brentford. They already found out. So we were in a really good position. And I remember Eddie Howe and myself, we'd use the fewest number of players throughout the whole season. So tight squad, you could name that team. I could name it now, even the subs who would come on, etc. So that was all really good. Got to January, and I think we lost to Ipswich on Boxing Day. I think we were like 3rd or 4th. And because of Matthew, everything is by numbers. Matthew wanted to bring in a number of overseas players. And I was more conscious about the dressing room balance. We were in a really good place. Maybe one additional strike or a different type of goals. Remember John Terrell, Harry, coming in, that type of player, Barcelona. Someone different, yeah. But Matthew wanted to sign a number of foreign players. And in my book, and I still stick by this, I'd love to stay at Brentford, but in my book, you don't rock the boat in January. You do that in pre-season when you've got 6 weeks to bed players in. So I was sort of saying no, and it got to I don't know what it was, February or something. And Davey Weir and I, we'd won on the Saturday. Sunday morning we're at the training ground, and Davey Weir's reading the paper. And Davey Weir sits, like, his desk was here, mine was here, and he's reading. And he goes, Rayo Vallecano coach turns down Brentford job. So I said, what? So David's got his glasses. He's gone, Rayo Vallecano coach. He went, well, that's a game changer. I remember David Weir, exactly what he said. He went, that's a game changer. So Matthew, he's very honest. So I said, I better phone Matthew. I said, Matthew. He went, morning. He said, good win. I said, yeah. I said, do I need to talk to you about the Rayo Vallecano coach? He went, yes. I said, tomorrow? He went, lunch? I went, yeah, okay. And that was exactly what was said. And Matthew wanted to change it because he wanted to bring in the probability of going up was like, say, 24.8% with the players as opposed to 23.2% without the players. And I just felt, Matthew always talks about what you could measure. And I said, how do you measure team spirit? How do you measure togetherness and unity? You can't, there's not a measurement of that. So by
No.
the mathematical, you could say it doesn't exist, but we all know it does. So I was, I know I was right on that. I know I was right. And then I said to Matthew at lunch, we went to the Orange Tree, I think it was in Finchley, and he said, I said, do you want me to stay? He said, would you mind? End of the season. So I said, and I asked the question, I said, so if we get promotion in the Premier League, am I still sat? And he went, oh, yes. I went, okay. And that was it. But I love Matthew a bit. He was honest and he wanted to do it his way and too right. He's written all the checks. It's his club, and what a magnificent job. So the good thing was my stock was high because we got to the playoffs. We were faced relegation and we got to the playoffs for the Premier League. So I had a number of big clubs come in, which was really nice. You're privileged. But again, David Weir's, I spoke to some, I won't name them, but they were like big Premier League clubs now. And at the time, one was Premier League, one was top of the Championship, and some big clubs. And then David Weir said, you need to speak to Rangers. And I said, Rangers? At the time, they were relegated in the Scottish Championship and torrid, down the leagues, the financial wrongdoings, etc. And I had a really good meeting with Rangers, and I'm still thinking I've got these huge English clubs. They are big clubs, and I'm thinking, oh, surely I've got to take this. And then my son obviously played football. He said to me, "Go on to YouTube," and he said, "Dad, you got to watch this." And if you go on, gents, if you like football atmospheres, and you go Old Firm, Rangers versus Celtic, Penny Arcade, and the clip is 8 minutes long of the pre-build up to the Old Firm game at Ibrox. And Jack the son said, listen to this and tell me you're not going to Rangers. And it's unbelievable. Put it on full volume. Old Firm, Rangers, Celtic, Penny Arcade. And it's when they sing these songs, it's unbelievable. So that was it. I had a second meeting with Rangers, and very privileged to go to a unbelievable club.
And obviously the objective there was to get promoted. Was it to get promoted in the same season that you were there?
Yeah, that was a non-negotiable. From the chairman's words, promotion's non-negotiable. He got rid of 13 players. So David and I turned up at training. We had 9 players. And we took a boy from the youth team because no one wanted him, called Barry Mackay. Took us 2 minutes to look at him and go, this boy can play. At the end of that season, Barry played for Scotland, full international. So that's what he did for us. But we had 9 players at the start, and non-negotiable. So I think we won the league by 11 or 12 points. We won the League Training Cup, and we beat Celtic in this big semi-final and got the Scottish Cup final. So we had a really good first season. And it is, I know down south there's an ignorance about how big those clubs are. Honestly, gents, as football fans, you've got to go.
Yeah, no.
They're huge, global. If they played in, I don't know, Charlotte tomorrow, 80,000. Playing Boston, 80,000 fans to turn up. Because they're just 2 huge global brands, and it was an absolute privilege to manage there.
Well, I saw the Old Firm derby happen yesterday, didn't it? Or I think it was yesterday. 2-2, and just watching the 3-minute highlights on YouTube, you see when the equaliser goes in, it's just the noise, it's an eruption. It's like an earthquake's gone off. Like it means so much to the fans, doesn't it? And I mean, I suppose for you taking over, the first time you step out onto the touchline, stood by the dugouts, you're just sort of trying to take it all in. Like, look at this.
Yeah, you have to, Harry. You have to, because a big, huge stand behind you, a big triple decker stand. But I remember in that first season, we won the first 11 games, and then we had a little blip, and Hibs won their game. So coming to the Boxing Day game, we were neck and neck. Like Hibs, obviously, green, blue. It was a huge rivalry, and they were really confident. And I remember you walk out the tunnel, and the players went first. I'd follow the players out, and I remember James Tavernier, the captain. The noise coming down as the players in the tunnel, I can't tell you. I've never heard a noise like it. I've been at Euro finals. I've been at Euro 96 when England, Germany. The noise coming down, the hairs on the back of my neck were like, and Tav, I remember Tav turned to me and his eyes were like, oh my God. And you walk out and the noise, and we went 1-0 down in this game, and then we played them off the park. And we scored, we were in at 2-1 at half time. And the noise, you could not hear yourself think. It's just an unbelievable theatre. And the Old Firm at Ibrox and Parkhead played there. Brendan was a manager, and 65,000. and you literally, like, the same player, Barry Mackay, we had remember Nico Crenshaw? Nico was playing for us.
Played for Spurs, didn't he?
Yeah, Spurs and Croatia,
Yeah.
80 clubs. Nico was playing for us. You had a tackle with Scott Brown, and Nico lost his head, got a yellow card early. And I'm trying to tell Nico to calm himself down. And Barry Mackay was maybe 10 feet, 8 feet away from me. And I swear to you, I'm screaming at the top of my voice. And I'm thinking, this rude little, he's ignoring me. He couldn't hear a word. You couldn't. Davey would talk to you from this far away, and you couldn't hear because the noise. And it, like in the UK game, the English games, it ebbs and flows. You know, Spurs will sing or Brentford will sing, and Hey Jude, and it'll lay off for 2 minutes, and then it'll sing. There, it's 90 minutes. It just goes 90 minutes, and it's unreal. And it's you're in these games, and Brendan said to me, "Wow," he said, "I thought Liverpool was big. This is like nuts. It was nuts, absolutely nuts. Great, unbelievable privilege, as I say, to never ever forget that."
But you said that you thought your player was ignoring you, and I'm sure in the moment you were probably having all sorts of emotions. As a manager, you have to keep your cool. And do you find it hard to do that when an environment is so hostile like that?
No, that doesn't. That sounds not in an arrogant way at all. That doesn't bother me, right? That doesn't bother me because they're going to shout what they want behind you. Some of the abuse you get from some of the grounds is horrendous, but it doesn't matter. That's they pay their money. But I think the most nervous I probably was when we played that. When we were in the Championship playing Celtic, who were champions, in that Hampden semi-final, it went to penalties. And there's a picture of me chewing my ring like this. That was the most nervous not because of, this sounds corny, not because of us, but you don't know what it means to the blue side of Glasgow. All your friends you've made in that first year and they support the team. It's different. It's just different to down south. It's a different level of passion. It is 7 days a week. Everything is on the game. You know, you turn up, and I'd get to Ibrox for 3 o'clock kickoff at like 9 o'clock in the morning, and there'd be 50 fans at 9 o'clock in the morning. And then by 10 o'clock, there's 500 fans. And then by 11 o'clock, there's thousands of fans outside. And these little clubs, drinking clubs open up, and there's thousands of fans by midday, 3 hours before. And you go, and it's just, that's the day. And when they win, which invariably Rangers tend to win more than most, they go to drinking. It's the whole weekend. The whole weekend is gone. And we would go and speak to all the supporters clubs all over the country, and it's just a different level of passion. I'm not disrespecting English fans. Far from it. It's just a different level completely.
I mean, I've always wanted to do the Old Firm derby, but I think now's a perfect reason. Jamie, would you agree?
No, for sure. What end would you
sit in?
Gents, you got to go to it. Well, listen, whatever your allegiance is, blue or green, trust me, I wouldn't be seen in the green end. But all I'm saying is that I think if you love football and you love history and passion and tradition, you've got to do the Old Firm game. You have to.
100%. I think to answer your question, Jamie, I think on behalf of Mark, I'll go in the Rangers.
Yeah, no, same here.
We've hit the bingo. Be rude not to, gents. Be rude not to.
Okay, so obviously,
go on, Harry.
Go on.
No, please.
Look, I'll do.
No,
please. Thank you. Okay. So after Rangers then was Nottingham Forest. So back to England, back to a new challenge, new club. Again, so you were hired to keep the team in the Championship. So you've walked in and already there's pressure there.
Yeah. I suppose, Harry, it was, I was really hacked off at what happened. Because what had happened at Brentford happened, but you go, okay, fair enough, and your CV's good. Rangers, the chairman at the time for year 2 gave us a new contract, and he said, right, the KPIs, he said, you've got to get into Europe in year 3, right? You get sacked from Rangers when we're second in the Premier League. So what do you mean we're bang on target? But because we were behind Celtic, whose budget blew us out of the water, you forget their fans. They're just rabid Rangers fans, which, okay, fine. So now I leave, and CV was strong, and not the Forest, Mr. Marinakis came calling. So we kept them up. Huge game, massive game. Here's 1 point for you, Harry, that we needed Blackburn. Blackburn who were trying to stay up. Was it Blackburn? Yeah. Blackburn had to better our score by 2 goals. That for them. Otherwise, we would have gone down. Blackburn were playing Brentford. 20 minutes in, Blackburn are 2 up at Brentford. I am cursing Brentford like you cannot believe, right? In the end, we won 3-1. All was good. So we have that season, we stay up, all happy. And he said to me, here's your 3 KPIs. He said, reduce the age of the squad. It was 29 and a half. We got it down to 22 and a half. He said, reduce the size of the squad. It was 36 when David and I walked in there. We got down to 24. And then he said, finish mid-table to give us some consistency to build for the following season. We were 12th, right? We were 12th. Mm-hmm. So we come in on New Year's Eve and getting ready for the game, and you get sacked. And you go, what happened there? But then you realise it's football. You can't bemoan. These guys write, like Matthew, like Mr. Marinakis, they write the checks. Mm-hmm. And you can bemoan the logic, the consistency of decision-making, whatever you want to say. It's just football, gents, and you can't be surprised. Look at Sean Dyche being sacked by the, or Nuno being sacked, or Thomas Frank being sacked. Excuse me. It's madness, but it's football, and it's social media, and it's reporters and journalists and column inches, all the stuff you guys know. But you can't be surprised. I was so angry about Rangers. To this day, I'm still fuming because they leaked it as if I had resigned to go to Forest. Absolute bull. Absolute nonsense. You would never, ever walk out in a club like Rangers. Trust me, you never would. It's a privilege. So every interview I've done since then, I made that really clear that they did what they did. But then you go to Forest and then bang, Forest do it. And then you go, wow, that's football. And that hurts you because now your CV reads, sacked Brentford, sacked Rangers, sacked Forest. And you go, I've hit KPIs at every single club. At Brentford, we were playoffs. At Rangers, you were second in the Premier League. And at Forest, we were sitting mid-table with every KPI hit. But you can't worry about it. You can't let it eat away at you. You just got to say it's football. Unfortunately, you learn and just move on.
Well, we know in even the recent seasons, Marinakis has done some questionable decisions from a fan's point of view. But surely, though, from a fan's point of view, we always think, well, they're still going to be paying your wage until you get another job. So do the clubs not really seem to care? What more do you think the board wanted from you that maybe they didn't quite tell you?
They just said they felt we weren't. We lost to Sunderland, I think, 1-0 at home, but we played well, really well. And just one of those games you couldn't score. And they say they make the change. But you hit every single KPI you hit. But because I think the problem is, go back to Rangers, if you think about these boards, very often, very, very often, they are made up of huge supporters of that club. So you have someone who's in their own business line or line of work, is very astute, good decision-making, very consistent. But when you come into football, it's the emotion and the passion of the game. So I always get asked, what's bigger pressure, being trading billions of dollars every day or being on the touchline? And it's on the touchline because it's not, when you lose a game or win a game, it's not just you or just your team. It's all like at Rangers, it's global. When Rangers lose, you can't. I kid you not, I'm in the West End, never had any problems at all, but there's a Waitrose 200 yards away, right? So I'd come back, I'm in family down south, I was working, and I'd go, Waitrose. I think the twice we lost, I couldn't go. I could not go. But every other time when you win, it was nuts, absolutely nuts. But as I say, it's just the way of it, and you just get used to it, and as I say, it's football.
I don't think people ever realise actually just quite how insane football is until you're in the heat of the moment. So until you manage and until you play, you can't really have a strong opinion on it because you simply haven't done it. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, and as I say, I've said in this interview or this chat, gents, I've said the word privilege probably about 20 times, but I think you're really privileged. To work in football, I think you're so privileged. And the good thing, I can look at myself, even when I was at Watford, leaving the City was demanding, but well paid and whatever else. But every time I drove into Watford training ground, I was always like, wow, I'm getting paid. I'm getting paid to do football for a job. And every time I got, moved up the ladder and did all right myself, you never lose that. You never lose the fact that you're getting paid to be involved in football. And it is, until you've actually been there, you can't understand the abuse. That's what I hate about social media. That's what I hate. I think players and that, it's such a part of life now, but people think they can use it as a medium to just holler abuse. And it's not the managers. The managers, you have to be thick-skinned. It's your family. my sister or my son or my daughter or my wife or whoever it may be would read some comments which were horrendous. I got my number got released from Rangers when what happened. Came out on a Friday night on ticker tape on 9 o'clock on a Friday night that Mark and David have resigned. Nonsense, bullshit, which is it was. But they also leaked my number. And I found out that there's 200, you get 250 on the text before your phone's full. Because literally my phone went full. And I ended up delete 250. And as I'm deleting them,
more come through, yeah.
And this is a God honest truth. I drove from Glasgow to London straight after that. Left my possessions. I come back up for them. I drove from Glasgow to London, and my wife at the time had a raving hump. I didn't call her because I literally couldn't go through. Had death threats and everything on the phone. But you couldn't do it. And my point is, we love sport, but what gives you the right? And you said about abuse. If you go to the stadium, that's your moment to let off steam, right? I get that. But what type of person then goes home on a Monday morning, sends horrific abuse to managers and coaches and players? I'll never for the life of me understand that. We were at Nottingham Forest and the chairman came in, a guy called Nick Randall, and he said to me, social media's going to meltdown, it's not good. So what's the problem? He said, we've had 1,600 odd like complaints and really vile texts. They investigated. It was one 15-year-old kid in his bedroom. Mum and dad were season ticket holders, had not a forest, had no idea what he was doing. And this one kid has sent 653 posts out. You effing, you this, die this, and just a 15-year-old kid in his bedroom smashed away on the keyboard. And that's a bit for me, as I say, you're a younger generation than me, but I don't see how anyone's got the right to go on this thing and level out abuse like that. I think it's appalling.
Well, the saying goes, he wouldn't do that to your face, would he?
Exactly right, and that's the whole point. There's so many stories, Jamie. Honestly, I would after game times I'd fly home from Glasgow, and used to get the 8 o'clock flight, and there'd be a few fans on there, and we'd played Aberdeen, and we had drawn at home. Right, there's they hate each other, these two clubs, and there's a guy, two people in front of me, and there used to be a passenger who would fly with me, not security, but would fly with me. And the guy in front, two in front, is going, if I saw Warburton now, his substitutions today, I'd let him effing and blinded, like you cannot believe, right? I'm two people behind him in the BA flight to London, right? So as you get on, he was sitting in like row 2, I was in row 4. So as he sits down, I come on, an evening like this, and I remember him looking, if someone's face could drain of all colour, and his mate, fair play to him, went, go on then. Like this. He went, oh, Mr. Warburton, how are you? And he's had the gall to ask for an autograph. And I'm looking at him going, you can imagine, right? I know you're right. But as you say to your face, they wouldn't do it. But I don't understand the mentality. Your team can be frustrating, like Spurs fans now are raging. But you don't send foul and abusive text to managers and coaches and players, do you?
No,
I just don't.
Of course not.
I don't get human society is in a bad place with doing that.
It absolutely is, yeah. As some call them, they're just keyboard warriors, aren't they?
That's all they are, unfortunately. But they can hide behind it, and as I say,
Exactly.
some people you got to be thick-skinned, and these top players are because they're Premier League, but a lot of people aren't, and a lot of people get affected by it. And thankfully, I'm old and uglier, but I think some of the young managers and coaches, and it's the families that get impacted more than the actual individual.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, obviously, you mentioned that one of your goals was to reduce the age of the squad at Nottingham Forest, and something that's quite key was Britus Mbonga obviously leaving the club, who I believe is now at Barnet, Jamie.
Is he really?
I mean, he could be. I mean, I've not followed Barnet for a while.
I think he might be. But something I wanted to point out, which is quite key to this, is that you gave quite a big opportunity to Ben Brereton-Diaz, who obviously, as we all know, has gone on to represent Sheffield United, and he's been at Blackburn, a player who's got a lot of flair, a lot of talent, and I imagine that's what you saw in him to give him that opportunity.
Yeah, but if you look at that Nottingham Forest game, the game we had to win against Ipswich, Ipswich, I had Jordan Smith Academy in goal, we had Ben Osborne, we had Matty Cash, we had Joe centre-half, Joe Worrell. We had Ben Brereton-Diaz. So we went really at 6 academy players. So, you got if they're good enough, they're old enough. And we threw them in, and Ben did great. And Ben was a He either played off the wing, off the right side, but he was always going to be more central. But it was, he was a talented boy, really talented boy.
You seem to come into clubs and make such an instant impact. And one player who you've definitely impacted for life is, of course, Eze, who has been balling it out in the Premier League. So for you at QPR, he wouldn't have been in the first team environment when you first came in, was he? So did you have to call him up? And what was the first sort of conversation you had with him?
Been out on loan at Wickham, released by Millwall. What a character, by the way. I cannot talk highly enough of that player. What a person, a human being, obviously an outstanding talent. And you can see that every day in training, Eze would do. The best players do one thing every day that catches your breath. They just do. But Eze did that. But what a human being. Cannot talk highly enough about Eberici. He's a top class individual, top class player. Enormous respect. So pleased to see him doing well. But he was, a joy to work with.
Must have been quite bizarre as well, moving from Brentford to QPR. Obviously, two arch rivals, West London rivals. Was there any sort of backlash or scrutiny around that, or was it, that's what happens in football?
It does, but I think when we took QPR to Brentford, if you remember, we had a really good game on a Friday night. Remember the one that we had there?
I believe so. Is that the 2-2?
There was 2-2 and there was a 2-1 game as well.
Yeah.
We had two games. The one where Brightside Samuel and Nico Henry had that foot race. It was like watching Usain Bolt, and it was unbelievable. But no, the Brentford fans were always really good, always good. Never had any problems with them, and likewise QPR were great because again we did well there. And I get some nice messages like today. I've had another couple from today from QPR fans saying some really nice things. So we did well there. We did really well there at QPR. We had 3 good years, and Johan Barbe, we took Johan.
Yeah.
We had a really good Ilias Chair, Brightside Samuel, Eberici Eze, Lee Wallace I took from Rangers, the Scottish captain. We had Senny Dieng, who went for big money to Middlesbrough. So we built another really good team there. And we had 2021, we couldn't win up to Christmas. Could not win. I was probably one game from getting the sacked. But when the team is playing really well, just could not score. So we drew at Wickham, and then we went to Norwich and drew there, should have won. And then that was January the 1st, 2021. 21, that's right. The next 12 months is only Man City got more points than QPR. Only Man City.
Wow.
And we just went on a run from being 20th to playoffs. Just on a really good run. But the squad was good, and it was a good 3 years at QPR, and the fan base were great to me. I know you're Brentford, Harry, but I haven't got that rivalry because to me they're just two good clubs, but it always looked after me, which is great.
I know you were at Watford at the early part of your career, but obviously Watford and QPR have some sort of rivalry as well, although sometimes it doesn't quite live up to the occasion. But for you to manage at Vicarage Road, for you to come back to one of your older clubs, what was that like?
Yeah, it's always. I was a academy director at Watford, so I never got impacted by that. But it was nice to go back. But London derbies are great. London derbies are always good. When you have those sort of games, as I say, the QPR Brentford. If you remember, Harry, one of the biggest ones I enjoyed at Griffin Park was QPR Fulham, because we'd gone to Fulham and won 4-1, and they had Ross McCormack. We won 4-1 at Craven Cottage, and we absolutely were outstanding that day. And then we had a night game where Harley Dean scored an own goal to go 1-0 down, and then Harley scored a goal to go make it 1-1. And in the 93rd minute, Hotter's cut in from the left flank.
Hotter in the last minute.
In the last minute, and the place went absolutely nuts. Friday night, under the grass, under the lights, smell of the grass, and the place erupted. It was that was a special atmosphere. So the London derbies they're always good. Like the Old Firm, they're always good derbies.
Absolutely. I mean, I think I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but I had a season ticket at Griffin Park since I was 3. So I've seen some special nights there. I mean, I'm sure I've seen many, many more under your spell as well. But it's those nights against QPR and Fulham that they mean so much more than a game against, say, Watford or Middlesbrough or Newcastle, those sort of teams.
Yeah, it's just there's something about the night games, though. I think there's a player and a manager and a fan. The smell of the grass and the dew and night time and the chill. I loved it. But that night was a really good night. That was a good night.
It was.
You won Manager of the Month, and we all know what that's like, where you get your trophy. How did you actually find out that you won Manager of the Month? As you said, you're not a big admirer of social media.
No, they tell you. I mean, that day, that first manager of the month one was we won 5 out of 5. We beat Derby as well, beat Leeds, and you win 3 out of 3, and then suddenly your Sky Sports say the favourites for the manager of the month will be this, and then you win 4 out of 4, and of course it goes on a 5 out of 5. So you have a shout that you might be involved. But it's always nice recognition. And at the time, you think this is never going to end. The team are flying. Trust me, they're hard to win. They're really hard to win. So, they're always well received.
What I'm interested to know is after a big win, so for example, let's go back to that Harley Dean game, if you like. How do you go out and celebrate that? Did you go out for a nice meal? Did you go out home? What's your sort of go-to plans after a game?
That's a good question. Like you have a drink with the managers in the room, which is very much a British thing, right? So you have a drink with the managers. If they come in, some good people come in, and you have a glass of wine and you chat. They're keen to get away, to get home, but you have a chat with them. And if it was like a Saturday game, I got home about. I left the stadium at 7:15. I got home by 8:15 or something. I'd probably go out for dinner with the family and just go for dinner and a glass of wine. But to be honest with you, this sounds really old. It's such a draining. There's a point where you can't sleep because you're too wired. And then you hit the wall and you properly because it takes a lot out of you in preparation, especially the bigger games and the bigger clubs. In terms of like Rangers, you knew the expectation, the build up to every game. It's just a different level. So that when you're privileged to work at those levels, you just have to concentrate so much. So when you have your downtime, you got to take it. I don't mean down to off. I mean just get your kit. You have a glass of wine and get your kit because you have to.
Harry and I went up to Wales to watch Merthyr Town, and we were sort of behind the scenes. And obviously, in a bigger club, no disrespect to Merthyr, the facilities are a bit bigger, but you don't quite realise how close the manager's office is to the changing rooms. And I'm not saying you ever have, but if you've ever not got on with the manager, and there may be some spiels at full time, is it harder for you to welcome them into the office, and maybe they just leave you be?
Yeah, sometimes there's some. Listen, it's heat of the battle, right? But there's always one or two that you will never get on with. It's human nature. Some comments, some people on the sideline, you go, I can't have that. I cannot have that nonsense. But you also know that for some of them, it's an act in front of their team. It's part of their charade that they play, and they cajole their players. And you have to respect. You understand people are in general. We're all doing a difficult job, privileged but difficult job. So why would you not have a drink, shake hands? It's 90 minutes, right? But there's always one or two that you never extend that courtesy to.
Now, obviously, you've had many highlights in your career, but I imagine something that maybe just tops it all is being part of the first team coaching staff that made history for West Ham United, and it's something that we wanted to mention. So what was it like, first of all, being called or informed that you wanted to be joined there, but also just the whole experience of winning the Conference League with a team like West Ham, who that's the biggest ever achievement in my eyes?
Yeah, I mean, this is a strange one that for 25 years, I was going to a place called Naples in Florida, about 6-7 hours from here down the coast. A stay nice hotel there, and I had I've got a boy and a girl, and David would go with his wife Pam, and he had a boy and a girl, and just by chance we met up and started playing golf. And I was in a different industry. He was at Evan. I would never bother him because that's just not my nature to do that. So we got on well, played golf, and of course I'm in the football world. And one year he was there, he got the Man United job, and I was chatting away, and his staff running with him, and so we always talked every year. And then I had a couple of offers to go to 2 championship clubs, and I was contemplating. One of the clubs was in a takeover, and the other one's owner was having some to and fro on what he was going to do. So I'm thinking these are quite unstable. And David said to me, let's go golf. So we went golf and played golf, and he spent the whole time talking about West Ham. And I think this is strange. Anyway, he said to me, let's play golf again. But normally we'd play like once a week, whatever it may be. So I said, I'll get better. I can't tell my wife I'm playing golf again. But then he offered me the job. He said, would you like to come in? And he said, I'm more defensive. You're far more attack-minded. And that was the idea behind it. So that's he asked me to go and join him. And had the other 2 clubs not been so unstable in terms of the ownership at the time, I would have always taken that job. And in hindsight, it probably wasn't the best move going to West Ham because everyone thought I'd retired. But the fact is, it was a great year. pleasure working with some really good staff, David and Billy McKinley and Paul Nevin and these guys, Kevin up top, and some really good people. Xavi Valero, who's now at Liverpool, some really good people. And obviously a pleasure to work with people like Declan and Jared and Lucas Paquetá and Thomas Soucek, Craig Dawson, Cressy, top players, top people, full of respect for them. So it was a really, and that night in Prague was special.
Before we go on to speak about that night in Prague, obviously we all know David Moyes is such a character in such a brilliant way. And you seem to say it how it is as well. Is that what David Moyes wants? Did he want someone to be brutally honest with him and perhaps not always agree?
Yeah, I think it's very hard. I mean, David won't mind me saying this because we're friends, but when you've got to be a very dominant personality to run the clubs like he has at Everton and, West Ham, obviously, and back to Everton and jobs in between, Preston, etc. before all of that. So you've got to have a dominant character. And it's very hard. I found it difficult because you're used to being number one and you used to just make decisions. And it's non-stop. It sounds really corny, like what time the bus going to leave? What time do you want a media conference? When do you want to do this? What time do you want that? When do you want the players meeting? It never stops. And I was used to that. And I found it really difficult because obviously it was David. David was the manager. But he's very clear in what he wants to do. He does it. He's consistent. Defensively, his teams are so strong, hard to break down. You saw the other night, they were brilliant defensively against Newcastle. Brilliant. So yeah, it was interesting. Learned a lot and enjoyed it, as I say. But such a privilege working with players of that quality. It was great to do it and to watch. There's a different level. You worked some really good players, top championship players, really good players with Nationals, Rangers, and really good players. And then there's another level. There's another level for those top Premier Leagues, the Declans, the Jareds, and the Paquetás, and these type of guys. Craig Dawson, centre half. You could say I was a strong centre half. What a good player! What a good player. Kurt Zuma. These type of players. And there's something that separates them, differentiates them, and it's a joy to see and a pleasure to work with.
Now, you say about joy and pleasure. Now, something that we've done our research and found out was that you were caught on camera in a viral moment, as the TV and headlines made it out, running onto the pitch to hug David Moyes and describing the whole feeling as just pure relief and ecstasy.
Yeah, that was the game. Obviously, you know what? Here's a true story. In the warm-up, right, you're trying to get rid of some energy in the day because you're ready for the game. So I went in the gym and I did a bike session in the gym. So we got out on the pitch for the warm-up for the game, and we're going out there. And I've just bent down and stretched my hamstrings, and my left hamstring just went. So if you actually look at me, I'm trying to hobble because my left hamstring was in bits. And David, we see each other and grabbed each other, and there's that picture. But I was in absolute agony. Honestly, you have no idea because the left hamstring had gone. But it was a relief because obviously Europe for West Ham as a club, but for David as well to win a trophy is so important. A European trophy, it'll always be on his CV, which is fantastic for him. But yeah, it was just a great night. The fans were magnificent, and the noise at the end, and wow, and then the hotel and the singing. I don't think I had friends. My son was over there. Friends from the city were over there. I don't think we got to the hotel till 2:00 in the morning to start the party.
Oh, to start the party.
To start it.
Yeah, and right the way through, I think we went right the way through to the following morning, breakfast, showered, flew back, and then the huge street parade, another 100,000, more than that, 150,000 plus West Ham fans doing that. So that was an unbelievable experience. I knew I wasn't contributing because David's hands-on, massively hands-on. And I was so used to being number one, I knew it. And I didn't want to ever lose my friendship with David. So I phoned him on a Friday after that win. So we won it Wednesday night. We had the street parade Thursday. And I phoned him Friday morning. I said, David, this isn't working for me. And he said, what do you want to do? And I told him why. And I said, look, if you look after me, I'll make it easy for you. You make it easy for me. I want to stay good friends and great friends as we are. And that was it. But I knew then that I could have stayed, but it wasn't right. I just didn't feel fulfilled. And I like managing. I love managing. I'm in a good job over here, but I love managing. And you get not bitter, but you're going like, how comes all these jobs are going to young guys we've never heard of? Not in a disrespectful way, far from it, but you think, why is your CV? It's almost like the trend is to go younger or overseas, or that's the trend. But the fact is, you're very, very privileged to manage.
I mean, it's the same thing at Watford, for example. Ed Stills took over and no one really has heard too much about him. You're going to tell me that it's business as usual when you head over for a European competition in Prague, for example, like you did. But when you win it and you've got the trophy there and you've got medals, it must feel more like a holiday.
Oh, it's not a holiday. It's not a holiday because it's such a build-up to the game. It's such a huge build-up. But go back to what I said about Rangers, Jamie, is that the responsibilities on all those West Ham fans. Funny enough, in the city, most of the dealers and brokers were West Ham fans. They all lived on the A12 corridor. They were huge West Ham fans. A few of them were lunatics in the old ICF, I think they used to call it. But they're West Ham through and through. So you realise, and I was getting calls from everyone. And I got tickets for as I said, my son and three of the broker boys, and they absolutely, I mean, that was the best night. Got back to the hotel, having their picture taken with Declan and Jared, all this type of thing, and James Corden, and they were living, and they phone me up every time I see them, or every other week, they'll send me a picture from that night that I still haven't seen, just because for them it was the best night of their lives, you know. But so you're very, very lucky to do it, but it's not. It's still work. You've got to go there and you've got to win the game. You've got to prepare well, and the players are ready. And it's at the end of a long season. So how much loading do you put on the players? You went to campus in Portugal, had 3 or 4 good days there. How much do you let the players wind down a little bit, play a bit of golf? Do you just keep going and just wear them out? So it's all of these various things have to come into play. So there's a lot of thought, a lot of planning, and the idea is to win the game. So can you imagine the devastation when you lose it? You know,
exactly.
So, yeah, it's huge. I mean, lost the Scottish Cup final to Hibs when we were the favourites. We had the hard bit beating Celtic, and we had injuries and probably that 3-week period wrong, and you lose that Scottish Cup final. Oh my God, it just kills you.
Obviously, we touched on it briefly, but I feel like you have to give yourself a lot more credit and all the coaching staff that you've made. You've made every West Ham fan's dream come true, and it's partly down to you. It's partly down to David. Everybody's chipped in, and they've all created this long-lasting memory for West Ham supporters.
Yeah, and it's such a big club, you know. And this obviously, I'm born in Tottenham. I'm a Spurs fan. My son's far more avid than I am, but they're big clubs. They're really big clubs, you know, and 55, 60,000 every weekend, but there's this expectation that comes with all the clubs. I mean, David did such a good job there, and they want to change it, and it's quite clear they want to change it, but then you're almost saying, what do you want? Like Spurs want to change it, you know, Ange has got to go, or whatever it may be, and Thomas has proven at Brentford, but now Thomas goes, you know, Sean Dyche has proven, Sean is great, manager of the month in January almost, and then sacked in February. And it's just this constant, you know, it is understand that I don't think they know what they really want. And as I say, at West Ham, this thing about Academy of Football is nonsense. Not being rude to them, but you can't say Peters, Moore and Hurst from the 1960s. And so you can't do that because we're talking that 65 years ago, 60 years ago. So it weighs too heavily. Now, if the fans demand a certain style of football, if they do, that's different. Then the recruitment of that manager must be in that style. So therefore, you know, how do you go from Nuno, who did so well at Forest, to get them into Europe, who was very, very pragmatic, defence solid, great on the counter-attack, pace and purpose on the counter-attack, to Ange? Because Ange is openly going to tell you he wants to play, all the players smile on their face, go and have fun, go and play. Obviously structured, of course, you know, he's a top manager, but it's a different style. So is the blame with Ange and Nuno, or is the blame with the board that picked him? Because you know you're getting different. And then you go back to Nuno's style in Sean, and as I say, he was a contender for January Manager of the Month, and he sacked in February. How? I just don't understand it. But it's this, your comment about West Ham. What do West Ham fans want? I'm not sure what they know what they want. I talked to my mates. Hey, he's no good. I want him. Oh, he's no good. You can't. You can't be that fickle because it's playing styles, it's cultures, it's staffing, it's specific players, and you may change from a 4-2-3-1 to a 3-4-3 or to a 3-5-2 or whatever it may be. But I'm just saying these decisions are huge, and you have to give them time. And Thomas is now, you know, someone idiot writes, the worst manager Spurs ever seen. Thomas is an excellent manager with a proven record. But thank you. All good. Okay. But he's a proven record. But how do they justify that? How do they justify these comments? But that's what I'm saying. The fans' expectations, and whatever your team, obviously Harry yours is Brentford. But for me, like I remember Sean Dyche was at Burnley. Sean was a youth team coach for me at Watford. And the worst thing he said he did, they came 7th one year at Burnley. And they got into Europe, if you remember. And it was the worst thing because the squad couldn't deal with the demands of Europe and Premier League, etc. They had a really torrid season the following year. But then after that, Burnley fans expected top 10. Now, every single year Burnley survive in the Premier League, you should just pinch yourself and go, there's 150 million reasons why that's a great season. And I still think Brentford the same, despite there being a consistent, solid team now, Harry. Every year they stay in, there's another 150, 160, 170 million reasons why they should be absolutely delighted. And fans lose this. I mean, West Ham have got no divine right. Spurs have got no divine right to be in the Premier League. One of them could go down this year. West Ham, Spurs, Leeds or Forest. One of them's going to go down.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I hope that answers the question anyway.
Well, you've been really, really fortunate to work with some wonderful players, but wonderful on and off the pitch. And I want to focus off the pitch. Declan Rice, we all know how wonderful of a guy he is. You mentioned Eze, Bowen. The list could actually go on for days. But when there's players in the dressing room that perhaps don't quite mould into a polite environment and maybe there is arrogance on their side, how do you deal with a player like that? Because for me, it seems maybe you haven't had to deal with that because you've dealt with such positively minded players.
Yeah, I obviously had a very difficult experience at Rangers with Joey Barton. That's well documented. Yeah, that was difficult. That was really, really difficult. I've been lucky to work with, it comes down to your recruitment in terms of a manager and work with people like David and Frank, top people. But if you recruit the right people, then they buy into your philosophy and you get to know them and you mould them and everything else. So I think, I've been really lucky. Obviously, West Ham are different because David Moyes is the manager, but still you treat people the same. If there's one word, if you said to me, name one word to sum up how you want to manage an environment, I say respect. Respect is timekeeping, it's how you look, it's how you talk to people. I'm not saying you're not shouting and screaming sometimes because it's a highly competitive sport, but there's a respect. It's never personal, it's only professional. I'm all about that respect, and how you treat the old comment about the tea lady or the groundsman or that. It's about doing the right thing. We would always send flowers to the players' partners on Christmas Eve because we're about to take their husbands away for the next 10 days for the mad Christmas program. So just little touches, and I think respect is really, really important. So for me, every player I've worked with, there's some great players. Nico Cranshaw was a top player. I got him when he coming down from his 88 caps for Croatia. But him and Modric, what a pair they were. But Lee Wallace, Kenny Miller, these type of people, really, really talented players. But obviously, pleasure Declan was top draw. Eze, Ilias Chair. There's some really good people. But as long as you're consistent with them, and you've got to be fair, and the other players want to know that you treat them the same as you treat the other stars the same as you treat them. And that's really consistent. If someone steps out of line, doesn't matter who it is, you drop them. There's one player at Forest, I won't say it was, we would have our analysis meetings at 1:15 in the afternoon, only last 10, 12 minutes, just analysing training or the opposition or what we're going to do. And one of the big hitters thought it was really clever to walk in at 1:14 and 55 seconds. Strolled in with he thought that was really cool. It took him 5 games of not being picked to work out that maybe he should be there on time. But the other boys were looking. They were all looking because if I'd have still picked him, they would have gone, it's not a fair playing field. But I didn't pick him. For 5 games, he knocked on my door and goes, is it anything to do with the analysis meetings? What do you think? Do you think early's on time is late? So you think it's cool to strut in at 1:14 and 55 seconds? Don't be an arse. So then he gets picked and he goes, but the boys had to see you're consistent. And I think that's really, really important in any industry.
Absolutely is. Obviously, Jamie's touched upon the brilliant players that you've worked with. So as a bit of fun, what would your ultimate five-a-side be of all the players you've worked with? So you can have the goalkeeper, you can have however many midfielders, defenders you want, but So what formation
Well, I'm going to say
what
it's
players?
difficult because of the level at West Ham, right? Because of the level of player. So I'm going to say goalkeeper. Let me be fair, because obviously Lucas Fabianski and Alfonso Areola, but I'll go with Seny Dieng from QPR because just to mix it up. Deck, of course. Eze, of course. You say 5-a-side or 7-a-side? What did you say?
Well, let's do 7.
Well,
let's crown the men.
Seven. Yeah.
7-a-side team. This is a powerful 7. I'd say Clint Hill. Clint Hill was a defender. I'd say Deck, Eze, Lucas Paquetá, Clint Hill for goalkeeper 5. I've got to say Kenny Miller and Jared Bowen.
Wow.
Quite a thing.
And I'm missing out people like Cranchar, Lee Wallace. Lee Wallace, outstanding. So if he's watching this, Lee, I didn't drop you. You'd be the first sub, Lee. But people like Clint Hill, again, top player. You know, people don't realise, again, he was QPR rivals, but what a good centre-half. Jesus, he was good. But I didn't pick Tarkowski. You know, I should really have picked Tarky. I should have picked someone like Stuart. There's just so many. You're very lucky to Ilias Chair to work with some really, really talented players. Ekaneze and Jared and Paquetá and Clint Hill and Kenny Miller and those type. Well, yeah, you're very, very fortunate.
Well, speaking of Ilias Chair, there's been some wonderful Moroccans playing in the Championship, including Watford's Imran Louza. Let me just put that on record. Mark, I wanted to ask you, actually, where on earth is your Europa Conference League medal? And I'm hoping it's out in the States with you.
That's a great question. It's in the States with me. Yeah, a friend's looking after it. A friend is looking after it for me. So, yeah, that's out. That's a special medal. That's a special medal. So that's
sure.
That's well and safe. And I've got some other nice bits and pieces and some nice stuff from Brentford and from QPR and Rangers and stuff like that. So it's, yeah, you're very, very lucky. And as I say, I keep using that word. So I apologise for repeating myself. No, but you work in football, it's just a privilege. So yeah, very, very lucky.
One of my final questions to ask you, Mark, is obviously you've been at Brentford when they were in the Championship and League One, and now the team in the Premier League and QPR are obviously moving on up as well. All these clubs are developing. So how does it make you feel to see that you've been there and you've made a big, big impact, and now these clubs are profiting, and briefly from what you've done, massively?
That's nice of you to say it, Harry. I can't say that myself. I'm really grateful for the kind words that people say to you. You know, I think we had a really good time at Brentford. Really good time. I didn't want to leave. I felt the team was growing. I was so looking forward to the following season, but it happened. So, but I think you can say in terms of laying down the staff, many of whom are still there, that gives you a lot of pride. And Matthew, enormous respect, and Cliff Crown and Niti Raj and the people on the board there. So yeah, that gives you a lot of pride. I know Rangers, we got them back up from the Championship and got the cup final and won the league. And so I get some really lovely messages from the Scottish fans. And then QPR likewise in terms of 3 good years, you know, and we've no one's finished higher since. And I read a nice piece the other day. A fan has sent over to me that, you know, they haven't hit the records that we had, and the budget was was half then as it is now. So yeah, you can take that as some personal pride, but at the end of the day, it's about the next job. It's about working and just trying to create some more memories, really.
Mark, I don't want to keep you for too much longer, but I'm so interested about your project in America. What's it been like for you to head over there and really build a team from scratch and try and push on from there?
Yeah, it's unique, gents. It's completely. When do you ever go over to a blank canvas? People go, "Oh, it's great. It's a blank canvas," and you go, "Hang on, it's blank. There's nothing on it." So, women, you have to hire the coach, assistant coach, goalkeeper coach, medical team, staff, 24 players. How do you sign 24 women players in America? Where do you start? Where do you start? Hours on Y Scout and agents and whatever else. And then they're doing well. They're top of the league, as I said. And now the men. So I've got Liam Fox, who's previously at Hearts, and Lee Wallace recommended. And Liam's come over. Scottish goalkeeping coach has come over. I've got another American coach. And you start from scratch again. Build a medical team and 24 players. And it's so difficult because how do you compare the level? You know, you're not sure. Imagine you've got a mate who's really, really good. How good is he? Is he good enough to go? Is he West Ham good? Is he QPR Brentford? Where is he? Is he just Breckie Arse Rovers? Is he just playing for? You're just trying to work the level out because a lot of players are the same. So it's been a real challenge. They announced today the new stadium, 15,000 seat stadium, the big industrial project around it, city walkways and cafes, and it's a huge, huge project. So they do things really well, and it's a different quality of life over here. The weather's the obvious one. But yeah, it's just been challenging. It's been challenging because, as right at the start of the interview, there's a lack of knowledge in certain areas about the game. And you'll see that. You'll see that. You'll come to a game and you'll see exactly what I said. People getting up, walking out, people cheering at the wrong time. They do a dinosaur race at half time. The dinosaur race gets more attraction than anything else because the fans love it. The fans love it. I kid you not. So we had a dinosaur race, just to end it on this one. Half time, the fans are screaming, going nuts. And you've got these 6 dinosaur suits running down the running track, right? Imagine the scene. I'm just like this. What's going on like? And Bluey, the blue dinosaur, crashes into the Gatorade. He runs in his suit, loses control, and smashes into the Gatorade, right? All through the second half, which was 1-1 until we nicked it 2-1. And in a tight nip and tuck, the commentator kept saying, Bluey's reported to be okay in the medical room. We'll see him soon. Bluey comes out the tunnel, the biggest roar of the night. And I'm looking around going, what is going on? But it's just different, right? You got to appreciate it and just say, right, I'm in a different country. I've got to adapt. Simple as that. I'll let you know how Bluey's getting on in the coming weeks.
Please do.
Wow. Yeah. But no, it's all good, gents. It's all good.
Well, Mark, I mean, what an absolute pleasure it's been. Unreal podcast. Harry, I mean, what have you got to say?
It's my favourite ever podcast, to be completely honest, Mark. I can't thank you enough for this. Obviously, as a full-time Brentford fan, lifelong Brentford fan, I only thought I could dream of this, but to make it a reality has been fantastic. Jamie, obviously, this is down to you as well, so I thank both of you for your time.
It's down to Mark. I really appreciate it.
Kind words, gents. Really kind words. I appreciate that. And you've got my number. If I could be of help any time, just give us a call.